Okay, so here we are again with, as promised, going to open Thun. It's right now almost 7 o'clock on April 29th. We're almost all the way through April. Wow. Uh, I might try to do this one a little later. Flash Gordon, got him from Amazon. Isn't he cool? Yeah, I'm excited about that. Got him before I left for work today and took him to work with me and just had him sitting in my truck. And anytime I come by my truck and admire this really cool action figure that I got. But we're going to open Thun first because he had arrived first. And much like Ming, his package is kind of starting to peel a little bit. Flash's package is starting to peel a little bit too, but it does seem like it was definitely better glued than Ming's was. Thun seems like he's a little bit better glued than Ming as well, but still comes off of there pretty easily. Looks like the worst part to have it stick, it would be this part over here where the artwork is, because I want to try not to tear the artwork if I can. But even still, you can see how like those two spots, that was where the glue was strongest, was those two spots. But look, like in the middle there, about where his elbow is, you can see there's almost nothing stuck there. So I figured I'd just go ahead and get that off the card real quick. So let's see here, the bio on the back. Oh, by the way, let's have a piece of that. Look at that nice little piece of artwork there. Again, kind of drawn to resemble the style of Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, since this is an homage to superpowers. And again, just for the sake of comparison, I happen to have next to it the card from Manga Batman, so you can see how it is pretty similar to a superpowers card in a lot of ways, but they definitely, changed it just enough so that the teacher can't tell that you're copying. But let's go ahead and read the bio on the back. That's what the back looks like. Give you another look at that. And you can see cross-sell artwork on the back. We got the Phantom, who I don't have yet. I have him back ordered at Big Bad Toy Store. Flash Gordon, who I'll be opening sometime between today and tomorrow. Ming, which I opened yesterday, so check out that review if you haven't seen that already. And finally, Thun himself. So Thun is a pretty interesting character. Let me go ahead and read the bio for him. One of the first of the princes of Mongo to become an ally of Flash Gordon, Prince Thun is both a loyal and steadfast friend and an implacable foe. I've never heard anybody say this word, so I'm just sounding it out. It's one of those things where, like, I have a really good vocabulary because I read a lot, but or at least I used to back when I had time to. But but I'm not good at pronouncing words because I read them. So anyway, Thun hid his hatred of implacable foe to those who would threaten his people, the Lion Men. Thun hid his hatred from the despicable Ming the Merciless, playing along with the monster when necessary and avoiding him as much as possible, shielding his people from the worst of Ming's policies while always biding his time to remove the dictator permanently. Flash's arrival on Mongo changed the rules, and for the first time in a long while, Ming's grip on power is loosening. Thun senses that the opportune time to free Mongo is nigh. So yeah, as you know, implied by this bio here, Thun was one of the first people on the planet Mongo that Flash formed a bond with, and became friends with, and allies and everything like that. When Vultan and Prince Baron were introduced, they were both kind of set up as rivals for Flash Gordon at first, and Baron especially for Flash, and for the hand of Princess Aura, which Flash wasn't even really interested in Princess Aura because he was in love with Dale. Although I'm more of an Aura fan myself, just saying. but yeah, so Thun was one that he encounters really early on in the comic strip and really early on in the movie serial. And this version of Thun is depicted very similar to how Alex Raymond drew him in the comic strip and how he was portrayed in that movie serial. Now, much later on in the Filmation cartoon, they redesigned Thun so that he had like more feline features to his face and looked more like an actual lion. And I kind of wish they had done that with this one because he just kind of looks like a guy with a long hair and a beard. So to me, like he looks. I guess you can say he looks kind of like a lion, but to me, just kind of looks like a hippie. so so yeah, I probably like if it was up to me, probably would have had something a little more like what he looked like on the Filmation cartoon. And I actually did have the Thun action figure when I was a kid. He was one of the ones that like my grandmama picked up, like toys that she found on clearance and put them in like the goodie bags at birthday parties. So Thun was one of the figures I got from that. But unfortunately, I was never able to find a Flash Gordon figure or a Ming figure. And this would have been like the mid 80s, I think, by the time I would have got this Thun. So it was just like the peg warmers that were left over like years afterwards. You had Thun and the Lizard Woman and the Beast Man. Like none of the named characters left. Thun was like the only named character left. So, but he was a pretty cool figure. I used him a lot with Star Wars because he was compatible with those. So I do have a lot of affection for him in that. Oddly enough, I think for most people my age, the probably the version of Flash Gordon you're most familiar with is the Sam J. Jones movie. And Thun actually is a character in that, although you might not remember because you didn't see a lion man in there. He was just looked like a normal human. He was a black guy. He was the only black guy in the whole movie with any lines of dialogue. So of course they kill him off in his one scene. It's a shame. But Thun does die while he's trying to stand up to Ming the Merciless and in a desperate bid to destroy the mad dictator. So he goes out like a G. I kind of feel like he at least, is able to go out trying to strike a blow against this horrible dictator. And even though he's not successful, like, I still very much admired his courage in that. And like I said, he just kind of looked like a normal guy. He wasn't he didn't even have the long hair and the beard like we see with this one. He just looked like a normal dude in kind of a golden outfit with this like really cool crown. But I guess it made sense to have the lion men be black people in this version rather than actually being lion men because, you think lions, you think Africa. Well, you make them African. That makes sense. But yeah, I would have liked for Thun to have been a bit more of a part of the Sam J. Jones movie. I think that would have been good. But 'twas not meant to be. C'est la vie. Anyway, so we've been over the whole card. We got the card, the figure now. So Thun comes with one accessory, which is this sword, and it looks kind of like a katana and a broadsword loved each other very much, and then they shared a special kind of hug, and then 9 months later, Thun's sword was born. So it's got kind of like a little bit of the shape of katana to the blade, but the hilt is definitely more of a broadsword kind of hilt. It does kind of taper out a little bit, almost like a scimitar. So it's like a combination of like various types of swords. And since it is a sword from an alien planet, I guess it makes sense that it's a sword that doesn't necessarily look like a sword that like I would be familiar with on Earth. It's like a comparison of a few different ones. Now, if we compare it to Ming's sword, we see that Ming's sword is much more of like a classic cutlass type of sword, like you would think of a pirate as having. And Thun's sword is a lot longer and thicker than Ming's sword. Make of that what you will. It's not the size of it; it's how you use it. All right, so let's get Thun himself out of the package. No rubber bands, no twist ties. He just comes right out. Isn't that awesome? And here we go. We got Thun out of the package, and he is a pretty basic action figure, but Thun's a pretty basic design of a character. He's basically like a guy with long hair and a beard and a loincloth. Oh, and he does have a lion tail, so that's cool. So, one thing that I did not notice when I was first going over Ming, and I noticed him later, is this head is actually ball jointed. So you can kind of tilt his head quizzically to the side. He can kind of look up a little bit. He can look down a little bit. Not the best ball joint, but it is a ball joint. So I thought I'd mention that again with Ming, since it's going to come up when I go over the articulation for Thun real quick. Now, Thun has orange skin, which I think would technically supposed to be fur, and I certainly interpreted the orange skin as being furry on the original Thun figure that I had when I was a kid, but he had like a lion face, and this guy just has like human facial features. So then I'm like interpreting it as skin in my head, but you could imagine it being fur if you wanted to. And his limbs are a lot less tight than Ming's were. Like Ming's, I'm like kind of almost even afraid to move this right arm at all just because it's so freaking tight. And I think that has to do with the fact that I think Ming's arms and the torso are painted, but Thun seems to be just plastic that's molded in orange. So let's go over his articulation. So Thun has a ball jointed head, can move like in theory it should move all the way around. But he's got this long hair and this beard, so it kind of gets in the way a little bit. But like I said, it's a ball joint, so it pops right off. He can look up about that far, so not too far up again because of the long hair. He can look down about that far, but again, not too far down because of the long hair. But it's still it's a pretty good range of motion on this head, especially for like a superpowers type figure. Whereas, say, with the McFarlane superpowers figures, this turns from side to side like you're used to an old superpowers figure doing. And since I happen to have Green Lantern handy, we can look at the vintage Green Lantern and how his head just turns all the way around. That's how action figures did in the 80s. We didn't have ball jointed heads like this. So there is a little bit of innovation that would not have existed in a 1980s figure back then. He has a single joint at the shoulder. Arm rotates all the way around. There we go. He's got this loincloth, which is a separate piece of plastic, and it does not seem like it's like permanently attached to him, but I don't think it's intended to be removed. And he's got no shorts on underneath the loincloth, so this whole figure is just like a plain orange body, and he doesn't really have any junk. He's like a Ken doll under there, but again, I'm not trying to be a pervert about it. I'm just pointing it out. So they could probably do a pretty decent Tarzan with these Power Stars figures, I think. Oh, I think I just found another piece of articulation, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So legs kick up about that far. He does have this rubber loincloth, so that does kind of hinder the leg movement somewhat, but not as much as you might think, because like I said, it's not like glued on or anything there. It kind of shifts around. Thun would probably be a good guy to use for like a basic blank body if you wanted to, for a custom figure. And the tail is jointed, so the tail is attached in at the base of his spine. It does not go into his butt. It starts at the base of his spine. And I don't think that this is an articulated tail. I think that they just kind of glued that piece in there. And that's unfortunate, because I think they could have, since it is a separate piece from this is like a hard plastic on the torso, and this is obviously a soft plastic on the tail. So they could have made this tail posable. They could have given us a little bit of articulation there, and they chose not to. So that's unfortunate. But one thing that I did notice about this figure as I was looking at him, and Ming might be the same way, he probably is, I'm going to have to compare. So you see he's got this single joint of articulation at the knee, like a Superpowers figure has. Again, this is, based on the format of Superpowers figures, is an homage to those lines. Got the hole in the heel like a Superpowers figure would. But I noticed that there is like an extra bit of articulation in this joint where you can actually rotate this knee. So that rotates all the way around. So there's some extra articulation on that a superpowers figure doesn't have. So now I have to check and see if Ming does that as well. And sure enough, oh yeah. So we got like a little bit of extra articulation on these Power Stars figures that the original Superpowers figures do not have. So, and we can compare Thun to Ming, and you can see that Thun is a much beefier, much more muscular figure than Ming is, which totally makes sense because Thun really should be like a big sort of guy. He should be like the Chewbacca of Flash Gordon, basically. So let's go ahead and put the sword in his hand and see how they look with that. And Thun does have like these clawed fingers. And I don't know if I'd mentioned this with Ming, but I will point it out with Thun, is he actually has separated trigger fingers. So if you want to put like some kind of gun or something in his hand, you can. And that's not something that we saw back in the 80s. We never saw separated trigger fingers like this on figures back in the 80s. Hell, I think like 12-inch G.I. Joes were like the only figures that had separated trigger fingers. like at all up to that point. So yeah, put it in there backwards though. So that's what he looks like holding the sword. Pretty cool. He does not have a sheath to hold his sword like Ming does, but I'm betting that what we can do if we want to store it is it'll probably fit in between. Yep. So you can, if you want to, slide it in between his loincloth like that. And that can give you some storage for the sword if you want to have him like, having, the sword, put away. Like if him and Flash are standing around making plans and you don't want to have him with this naked blade in his hand. You can tuck it into the strap of his loincloth. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if you're intended to do that. I don't know if that's like how it was designed, but it's something that you can do if you wish to. Now, I wouldn't advise doing that too often though, because like with Ming, I'm pretty sure that this is a sword that's actually painted silver rather than being molded in silver plastic. Likewise, how Ming's is painted gold rather than being molded in gold plastic. But it's something you can do if you want to. I'm just throwing it out there. It's something that's possible. Let's see if I can get an extra one of these and make a Tarzan figure. I'd have to cut the little claws off of his toes and off of his fingers. But I think this would be a good body to use for a Tarzan custom. Or, better idea, Boss Fight Studios should actually make Tarzan to go in this line, since I know they have the rights to Tarzan. Oh, you guys also, don't you have the rights to Zorro and Red Sonja? Yeah, I think you guys do. And I think that those are characters that would fit in perfectly with the Power Stars line. And some other characters that I would suggest you get, like look into getting the Shadow and Doc Savage. I think those are characters that would work out really well in this format. I would love to see Superpowers style versions of those characters. I could have the Shadow meet Batman. Wouldn't that be awesome? So I really like these figures so far. If you're a fan of the Flash Gordon characters, and you know I'm a fan of the Flash Gordon characters, I highly recommend picking these up. And like I said yesterday with the Ming review, is I was able to get both of these pretty cheap on Amazon. They're both on sale on Amazon right now. So Ming, I got him for like $15. I think right now he's like $16, $17. And Thun is about $12. Now, obviously, that's a little bit more than the McFarlane Superpowers, which are only $10. But remember, they're not as big a company as McFarlane. They're a little more boutique, and it's not like they've got like a deal, to sell them in like Walmart or whatever, like McFarlane has. Oh, and for anybody wondering, yes, this is the McFarlane Robin cape that I put onto him. I liked him better with the longer cape, and I wound up putting the cape that actually came on Ming onto a vintage Superpowers Dick Grayson Robin that I had that was missing his cape. So that way I could have the classic Robin with the shorter, brighter yellow cape. and I took this from one of the Tim Drake McFarlane figures and put this onto Ming, and I think this looks really cool on him actually. So I think I talked about that a little bit in the video because I think I showed that in the video for Ming. But since we've opened up, you know, the arch nemesis of Flash Gordon, and we've opened up the first of many allies that Flash encountered on the planet Mongo. Finally, Flash Gordon himself. So I'll be opening him up, sometime within the next 24 hours or so, like give or take. I might do, at the very least, I'll do them after I get off of work tonight, which would be tomorrow morning, which would mean I'd probably get home around like 8 o'clock or so, sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Or I might do them before I leave for work tonight. Who knows? This is going to depend a lot on how I'm feeling. My main problem lately, as far as doing the videos go, and that's why I haven't done as many this week, is that I'll get home from work and my back's been acting up like really bad. And I'll get home from work and I'll try to go to sleep as early as possible because I have a hard time getting to sleep because my back is killing me. And it's really hard to fall asleep when you're in intense pain. So I'll wind up being up a lot later than I wanted to, and finally just fall asleep through the pain just because I'm so freaking exhausted. And then I wind up sleeping until it's about time for me to go to work anyway. So that's why I haven't done as many videos this week as I've been doing. And like I said, I wanted to try to kind of double up on them on some of these days so that I could get a few more out. But yeah, I'll be doing Flash Gordon sometime maybe not quite the next 24 hours. So like I said, I'll get off a little bit later in the morning tomorrow, but it'll probably be like sometime, give or take, in a 24-hour period. It might be as long as like 26 hours, but it might be as early as 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It depends on when I wake up. I might wake up at noon and be like, you know what, I might as well go ahead and open up that Flash Gordon figure and get that out of the way. So but yeah, these are really cool figures, and I'm hoping they'll do more. I mean, obviously they're going to do more Power Stars because they've got like a whole assortment of Popeye figures coming up, and I have pre-ordered those on Amazon, so I want to make sure, I'm a big Popeye fan, for whoever doesn't know, among the other characters that I'm a huge fan of. And those Popeye figures are specifically based off of the Popeye the Sailor meets Sinbad the Sailor short, which was the first color short that Fleischer Studios did back in the 1930s, I think it was. Might have been the 40s, but I think it was more like the 30s. But yeah, so the next assortment is going to be an all Popeye assortment. But I'm hoping after that, that they'll do some more Flash Gordon characters. Like we need, Zarkov and Baron and Dale and Volton and Princess Aura. I want Princess Aura. I wouldn't mind having an action figure of her either. Heyo! But yeah, I will do Flash Gordon coming up very shortly. If you want to make sure you don't miss that, make sure you like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure and the character of Thun in general. Are you a fan of this character? I feel like he doesn't get quite as much love as he probably deserves. He gets a little overlooked. Volton is probably the most popular of Flash's allies, I would imagine, based on the strength of Brian Blessed's performance. I was always a big fan also of Prince Baron. Like I said, I was always a fan of Princess Aura, so I like Prince Baron because he was the guy who got with Aura. So I'm like, that guy's got good taste in women. So so yeah, I like Baron, and he was Timothy Dalton. So how do you not like Timothy Dalton? But Thun, yeah, he was underused in the movie. He could have been in the movie a bit more. They did a good job with him on the Filmation cartoon. He was awesome in that. And I liked him in the movie serial also. So he's a good character that I feel like gets kind of overlooked. And I'm glad that at least Boss Fight realized, hey, you know what? Let's make a Thun figure. He's pretty cool. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this episode. We will talk to you next time. Bye.